Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're stepping into a really secretive, high-stakes world. It's a place where, this breathtaking creativity meets just massive deception. We are talking about art forgery.
And when you think of master forgers, certain names probably pop into your head. They're almost always men. You've got Han van Meegeren, who fooled the world with his fake Vermeers.
Right, or Elmir de Hory,
Right.
Wolfgang Beltracchi. It's this whole rogues gallery, and they completely dominate the narrative.
They really do. And there's this strange mix of, vilification, but also this kind of begrudging admiration for their so-called genius.
That's the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
And it's always centered on these male figures, which it really makes you wonder, where were the women in all of this? Was the talent just not there?
And this is the interesting part, were they maybe just better at the deception, flying completely under the radar of a system that wasn't even looking for them?
And that is exactly what we're going to get into today.
Precisely. Our mission is to challenge that entrenched male-dominated history. We want to shine a light on women who had this incredible artistic skill, this ingenuity, but they were operating in this clandestine sphere.
It's all about exploring that really blurry line between, say, artistic expression, genuine genius, and then outright criminal deception.
It forces you to redefine what success in the art world even looks like, especially when you remember that. For centuries, legitimate success was systematically denied to half the population.
The very systems that shut them out became the ones they learned to exploit.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So we're going to start with a few case studies. And what's so striking right away is that deception isn't just one thing. It's not always a paintbrush and a canvas.
No, sometimes deception is less about fraud and, believe it or not, more about heroism.
That's our starting point. Rose Valland, a truly remarkable French art historian, a curator at the Jeu de Paume Museum in Paris during World War II.
And when the Nazis occupied Paris, they took over the museum. They turned it into their central warehouse, basically, for all the art they'd looted from Jewish families.
And Valland was still working there. She had to watch all of this happen.
And she risked her life every single day. She pretended to be, indifferent. She even pretended she didn't speak German. And all the while, she was secretly, meticulously documenting everything.
And this wasn't just a simple list. I mean, she recorded the exact details of the artworks, their provenance, where they came from, and, crucially, where the Nazis were sending them.
But she did more than just document, which was already incredibly brave. The sources show she deliberately falsified records.
Yes. She would change the transfer manifest, the very documents she was presenting to Nazi officers. It was a calculated deception, a strategic move to mislead them.
To what end, though? Just to confuse them?
To save the art. By falsifying the records, she could obscure the true value of a masterpiece or misdirect its destination, which ultimately helped save thousands of priceless works from being lost forever.
Wow. I mean, the level of sustained courage to pull that off right under their noses. How did she not get caught?
She used their own arrogance against them. They just saw this quiet, unassuming French woman. They thought she was irrelevant. Her legacy is purely heroic.
Yeah, and her story just immediately dismantles that simple idea that all deception in the art world is a crime. Her deception served justice.
Exactly. But now, let's pivot to a case where deception was driven purely by greed.
Right, from the noble to the notorious. This brings us to Glafira Rosales and the infamous Noodler Gallery scandal. This scheme ran for over 15 years.
Yeah, from about 1994 to 2009. And it absolutely devastated the abstract expressionist market. Rosales partnered with a Chinese artist, a painter named Peixin Jian.
And he was the one actually painting the fakes.
He was. And they were incredibly convincing fakes of giants like Mark Rothko, Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning. Rosales was the front woman, the networker who sold them.
And the scale of the betrayal here is what's so shocking. She sold dozens of these forgeries to the Noodler Gallery in New York. I mean, a 165-year-old institution.
It was seen as the pinnacle of prestige. And they, in turn, resold them to wealthy clients for tens of millions of dollars. It was a complete institutional breakdown.
How did they get away with it for so long?
The gallery seemed to suspend its due diligence. Maybe because the names Rothko, Pollock were so profitable, the fallout was just immense. The gallery had to close its doors for good.
And Rosales pleaded guilty in 2013 to, wire fraud, money laundering?
A whole list of serious charges. Her success really showed that by the turn of the millennium, a woman could absolutely orchestrate fraud at the highest levels of the art market.
Even if the actual brushstrokes were a man's. She understood the psychology of the market. She was the mastermind.
Which brings us to someone who didn't use a brush at all.
Anna Sorokin, or as most people know her, Anna Delvey.
Right. Her deception wasn't about forging paintings. It was about forging an entire identity.
Between 2013 and 2017, she just took the New York elite by storm, posed as this wealthy German heiress living a life of luxury.
All while defrauding banks, hotels, and very wealthy individuals out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And her cover story was always that she was starting an exclusive art foundation.
And as the show, Inventing Anna, made clear, her crime wasn't faking a masterpiece, it was faking access. She showed how the art world's obsession with wealth and exclusivity makes it so vulnerable.
Yeah, being rich enough to belong is often more important than being knowledgeable enough to critique. The system was just wide open for her.
Okay, so from heroism to financial fraud to social deception, our last case is maybe the most complex.
It is. We're talking about the Aboriginal art forgeries that became a huge issue in the 90s and 2000s, mostly in Australia. And here, women and men were involved in creating works that mimicked famous Indigenous masters.
Artists like Emily Kangwari.
And Clifford Possum Chapultari, yes.
Yes.
And this is where the ethics get really, really blurry.
Because you have this whole spectrum of activity, right? On one hand, you have works being made by family or community members replicating a style to sustain income for the whole group.
Exactly. And that raises these profound questions about authorship. Is it fraud, or is it a form of cultural continuity?
But then on the other end, you have clear-cut fraud.
Right, non-Indigenous exploiters who were just mass-producing fakes to cash in on the booming market, completely disconnected from the culture.
So these cases aren't just about money. They force you to look at cultural appropriation, authorship, and the commodification of sacred art.
So we have all these examples, women using deception for heroism, greed, ambition, even cultural exploitation. The talent and the strategic thinking were clearly there.
Undeniably. So why is the story we always hear about the male forger?
Well, the answer isn't about a lack of ingenuity. It's about the institutional walls that were built around the art world from the very beginning.
What's fascinating here is that the scarcity of famous female forgers, it perfectly mirrors the scarcity of famous female artists in general.
It all starts with education, or really the lack of it.
Let's talk about that first barrier, limited access to art education.
For centuries, from the Renaissance all the way to the late 19th century, women were systematically shut out of formal art academies and guilds.
These are exclusively male spaces.
Almost entirely. And they controlled access to the subjects you needed to study to create or even convincingly fake a masterpiece. We're talking about deep technical knowledge.
Not just how to hold a brush.
Exactly. They were banned from life drawing classes, studying the nude human body, which is essential for anatomy and classical composition. They were kept from the chemistry needed to mix historically accurate pigments.
So without that formal training, how could you possibly learn the skills needed to replicate an old master?
It was virtually impossible. Their training was informal, maybe with family, or limited to what were seen as lesser arts like decorative arts or still lifes.
So the lack of famous female criminals isn't a lack of talent? It's a lack of opportunity to even practice the crime at a high level.
Precisely. And that fed directly into the second barrier, which was the male-dominated art world itself. The critics, the dealers, the historians.
The gatekeepers.
The ultimate gatekeepers. They're all men, and they routinely overlooked, undervalued, or just outright dismissed the work of women.
We see that in legitimate art history all the time, like Judith Leister, the 17th century Dutch painter.
A perfect example. She was hugely successful in her lifetime. But after she died, her work was misattributed for centuries to her male contemporary, Frans Hals.
Simply because of the assumption that a work of that quality had to have been painted by a man.
So if the art world was actively misattributing legitimate work, it's no surprise that any involvement in illicit activity was also downplayed. Male forgers are mythologized as these anti-hero geniuses.
But women involved in the same schemes are just dismissed as, the wife, the muse, an accomplice, never the mastermind.
This raises an important question, though.
What if that societal blind spot was actually an asset?
What if it was? That leads to this intriguing theory of undetected talent.
The idea being that women, because they were operating in a world that excluded them, they might have developed this really acute attention to detail.
A deep understanding of the market's biases. All skills that would make for an excellent forger.
And if you combine that with the societal assumption that the mastermind must be a man.
You've got the perfect cover. The critics, the police, they aren't even looking for you. It's speculative, of course, but it suggests we might be missing a huge hidden history of forgery.
Which brings us to the modern day and this big ethical question. Is forgery just a crime? Or could it be seen, especially in this historical context, as an act of rebellion, a twisted form of artistic expression?
Yet for women, that ethical dilemma is just so much more nuanced because of that history. When you were structurally excluded from any legitimate path to recognition, forgery might have been one of the only ways to show off your talent.
To gain any kind of access to that world, even illicit access.
In that light, their actions feel profoundly subversive. They weren't just committing fraud. They were forcing the elite gatekeepers to acknowledge their skill, even if it was under a stolen name.
It's like a dark mirror, reflecting the unfairness of the system.
And their stories force us to question what authenticity even means. If a forgery is indistinguishable from the original, does it lose its value just because of who made it?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because even though we've seen a lot of progress, women have more access to education and opportunities now. That legacy of exclusion is still with us.
Oh, absolutely. The historical barriers created this imbalance that we still see today. Studies show that works by women make up a shockingly small percentage of major museum collections.
And they still achieve lower prices at auction compared to their male counterparts.
So the exclusion that started back in the Renaissance continues to shape perceptions and opportunities in the 21st century. It means that even in the shadow world of crime, the narratives of women are still being minimized.
Their stories are just so complex. Were they unsung geniuses because of their skill, or master criminals because of their deception?
And the answer is, in most cases, they were both. But their stories are too compelling, too informative about the art world's weaknesses and biases to be ignored any longer.
They deserve to be told and remembered.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests that maybe, just maybe, true artistic genius was hidden not by a lack of skill, but by this deep systemic bias, which makes the act of forgery, in some historical cases, a twisted form of protest.
It's something to think about the next time you're in a museum looking at a painting by a famous name.
Could the real creator have been a woman who never got to sign her own work?
That is a powerful note to end on. If you want more deep dives like this one, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive.
We are Anita Louise Art, and we are really dedicated to art education and uplifting art. Our goal is to make art knowledge accessible and, exciting for everyone.
You can find out so much more about what we do, including our high-quality artwork for sale. And you can read the blog post that inspired today's discussion by checking out Anita Louise Art.
And we would love for you to join our community. Please subscribe to our free newsletter for the latest insights, artist features, and news on upcoming deep dives.
And for a quick hit of art knowledge, subscribe to the Anita Louise Art YouTube channel. Or join us for our other show, 5 Minutes with Art. It's just 5 minutes a week to discover great art and artists. We'll see you on the next deep dive.